What's going on, everybody? Jolt here from TheTokenMinorities, and I am back with the team builder for Week 1 of the Global Battle Association Season 8, where your Kansas City Giraffe Chiefs will be preparing to take on the Victorian Shadows, coached by Necrostevo. Make sure to go check out my opponent's channel. He's going to be linked down in the description below. Before I jump into this team build, I do want to, first and foremost, once again, welcome any new viewers to the Token Minorities. If you do like what you see here, I hope you will subscribe and stick around, as we do provide a lot of Draft League content on this channel. Not just from me, I have some channel partners in Styx and Danza who also upload Draft League content, and we also have a large amount of TCG content as well coming from Styx on this channel. So hope you'll check it all out and subscribe and stick around. Now let's go ahead and talk a little bit about how I'm going to do these team builder videos throughout this season. As I know a lot of you guys, you've been here a while, you know how I do things, but I want to just talk it over with those who might be new and watching me for the first time on YouTube. So basically how I do my team builders is, it's pretty different, I think, than what you might see from most coaches, and that's intentional because I try to teach. Okay, I'm trying to teach my viewers how to build better in the format. And if you want a more consolidated video where I go over just the basics, essentially, of how I build my teams, I've actually made a video dedicated to that, and if you want to take a look at that, it's going to be the featured video on our channel. So if you just click on, if you just like navigate to the Token Minorities main channel page, it's going to be the featured video there. Go take a look at that if you want to learn some of the basics that I recommend for people trying to improve themselves as a builder in the format. But what you're going to see throughout this season is that I'm going to be trying to further improve your ability to build by going through my team building process pretty thoroughly, but also succinctly at the same time. So you'll kind of see how that goes. Basically, I'm going to try to describe my thought process as well as possible and not just bore you with what the EV spreads and moves are that I decided to bring on my Pokemon, and more so look into or describe what I see in my opponent's team that has led me to want to bring these types of Pokemon. So that's a little bit of an overview as to what types of team builders you can expect to see from me. Now let's go ahead and dive on into this. So my opponent, Necrostevo, this season has access to Mega Alakazam, Hawlucha, Lycanroc, Day, Rotom, Heat, Togekiss, Diggersby, Tyranitar, Alolan Executor, Araquanid, Delmise, and Fortress. That's ranked in order of speed tier. So he has some pretty interesting mons on his team. What's very interesting to me is that he has 3 Pokemon that are really, really fast, and then the rest of his team is honestly really slow. That's kind of a strange thing to see, especially when he only has 2 Trick Room users on his team. It might only be 1, actually. I'm looking through his roster. I think Alolan Executor gets Trick Room, and Mega Alakazam is the other one. So only 2 Trick Room users on his team, and I really don't count Mega Alakazam. So it's a really strange draft structure in terms of speed tiers. That's just something I noticed right away on his draft. But my draft, just in case you missed the draft analysis, and if you haven't seen that, that'll be linked in the description below. Make sure to go check that out as well to get familiar with why we picked the Pokemon that we did for this season of the GBA. My draft is Celesteela, Latios, Arcanine, Mega Venusaur, Seismitoad, Zygarde 10%, Rotom, Gardevoir, Alolan, Persian, Staraptor, and Durant, with the Celesteela and the Rotom being my Z-Captains, and Necrostevo Z-Captains for this week are Lycanroc, Day, and Alolan Executor. So, like I already mentioned, the speed tier matchup's a little bit weird, and the biggest reason why this is an unconventional speed draft structure, or just a more so a speed draft structure that I wouldn't recommend, is that there's this massive speed tier gap between 112 and 86. Lycanroc Day has a base speed of 112, and Rotom Heat has a base speed of 86, and that major gap between the two means that I'm going to be able to run more aggressive natures on my Pokemon. For example, if I were to run a Staraptor, I could easily run an Adamant Staraptor, because Adamant Staraptor still outspeeds Timid Rotom Heat, base 100 outspeeding base 86, and I have no real reason to even want to run a Jolly Nature on Staraptor. So right away, Staraptor is looking like an even bigger threat at draft preview, just because I'm able to automatically assume I'm going to be able to have the damage output from an Adamant damage calc. So that's one thing. Another thing that's pretty interesting is Zygarde Dog, as Lycanroc Day is typically a Pokemon that you will see in the sand, or as like a lead set for a Stealth Rocker, so I don't necessarily have to make sure my Zygarde would outspeed a Lycanroc Day, even though I naturally would be able to. But if I were to simply ignore Lycanroc Day whenever creating my Zygarde set, based upon what I just mentioned, how it would probably be under Sand or as Elite set anyways. Zygarde Dog can also run an Adamant Nature against this type of team, with the base 115 speed being more than enough to run an Adamant Nature and some bulk against a team that already naturally is pretty weak to 1,000 arrow spam from these Zygardes. So those are two very early offensive options that I see as being really strong against my opponent's team, and those are two things that I'm going to try to build around here in this matchup. Now, one other thing to note is that he is very weak to Celesteela. The only real response that he has to an autotomized Celesteela is the Rotom Heat, which actually is pressured a lot defensively from my team. So Rotom Heat is going to be his switch-in, potentially to things like Staraptor. It'll be his switch-in to something like Arcanine. It would be his switch-in to Celesteela. It would be probably his switch-in to Durant as well if I were to bring that. So the Rotom Heat is almost definitely coming, and depending on how I structure my team, it's actually going to be pressured a lot as well defensively. I didn't even mention Gardevoir. I don't think Gardevoir is another Pokemon that really forces in Rotom Heat and forces it to take damage. So what I'm trying to say is Rotom Heat's not going to be able to stay healthy very easily against my team, which means that an odds offensive Celesteela is also really good in this matchup and something that I can build around too. So I've already mentioned a lot, talked a lot about the speed tiers and how the Rotom Heat is overly pressured. The other main thing that I wanted to point out about his draft that I'm going to try to exploit a bit is the fact that he has only one Toxic Resist on his entire draft in the Fortress, and that's pretty nice for me. That's something I can definitely exploit, and when I'm able to get off free Toxics against this whole team, essentially, that just makes the job of whittling down things like the Rotom Heat and things like whatever his defensive response might be to Zygarde. It just makes the wearing down process a lot easier. So offensively going into this matchup, it's a very solid matchup for me if I'm able to exploit those key weaknesses in my opponent's team. So with all of that said, let's go ahead and jump on over to the team that I'm going to try to bring here for this week. We're going to start this off with the Celesteela. Now, I already mentioned that his only real response to Celesteela is the Rotom Heat, especially if I'm packing a Z move on my Celesteela this week. And for the longest time, I was strongly considering bringing something like Z Stone Edge, the Rocky MZ on my Celesteela to help me better deal with the Rotom set, or with the likely defensive Rotom meant to check this, but I actually ended up going with Z Fly instead. And the reasoning behind that is I feel like this team is going to be good enough at wearing down the Rotom Heat to where I don't actually need the Z Stone Edge, and Z Fly allows me to basically more easily get my Beast Boost after Autotomize. So this is essentially the most likely late game win con. It really just depends on what type of team he decides to bring, because if he brings a team that's really good at dealing with Celesteela, that means that it's going to be a team that's also very weak to the Zygarde, because he either has to bring Celesteela setup fodder to wall Zygarde, or not bring Celesteela setup fodder and get destroyed by Zygarde. That's just how it works. You have to bring your bugs and your grass types to be able to easily switch into Zygarde, or I guess Togekiss in his case potentially. Regardless, he has to bring one of those if he wants to have a switch into Zygarde. If he brings one of those, it's automatically going to be Celesteela setup fodder with how this team is designed. So that works out pretty well on my end. But yeah, just a really good set against this team. I opted for a lot of bulk instead of just maxing out my attack this week, because I want this to also be a pseudo switch into the Mega Alakazam, as this will allow me to pretty much from any decent range of health be able to take an HP fire from a modest Mega Alakazam and be able to autotomize in its face and just go for a Z move and claim my kill. And pretty much as soon as Rotom Heat is a little bit whittled and I have a +1 from Beast Boost, the game is essentially over. So this kind of body bags him. Celesteela is ridiculous, guys. They gave this to me at number 13 overall in round 1, and they're gonna regret it. So that is how we're starting this off. Next up is going to be the Zygarde. Pretty cool set here. So like I mentioned before, I can run an Adamant Nature on the Zygarde in this matchup because of the fact that I don't think I'm going to be in a situation where I need to use my Zygarde to check a Lycanroc Day outside of the sand. So with that in mind, I can run an Adamant Nature. I also still have extreme speed on this set to be able to deal with it, to be able to chip down the Lycanroc a bit if I have to. It's pretty frail, so extreme speed still does a respectable amount of damage. 1,000 Arrows hits pretty much everything on his team except his grass types and his bug type, being Araquanid, Alolan Exeggutor, and Dhelmise, and Outrage hits all of those very hard as well as needed. I am just running a Life Orb instead of a Choice Band just so that I can switch up those moves if I have to, and Toxic is really nice just to land on whatever his initial switch-in might be. If I see he's going to have something like the Araquanid or something like the Alolan Exeggutor Executor that might be a switch in and I don't want to lock into Outrage yet, firing off a Toxic on that turn might be something that helps me out better in the long run, so that I can get whittled down a little bit more before I commit to an offensive move with my Zygarde. So that's the general idea behind this set. Now the investment here, I just needed the Adamant Nature and I could drop my speed all the way down to Rotom Heat speed since I wasn't bothering with trying to outspeed the Lycanroc. So what that means is I can raise my HP to the best Life Orb number possible at 139 and then drop the rest into defense so that I can take hits from Fortress specifically a little bit better. I feel like I might be in a position where this is going to be spamming 1,000 arrows against Fortress because I would like to weaken down Fortress to help other members of my team potentially sweep late game as well. Celestia likes having the Fortress a bit weakened, as does my Staraptor and as does my Gardevoir that I'll show here in just a second. So that's the Zygarde set, really complements the Celesteela well. Between the two of them, one of them is going to be an incredible win condition against this team, and there's really no way around that for him. He has to bring either the resistances to one or the other, and if he brings the resistances to the Zygarde, then the Celesteela is going to have some pretty nice setup fodder to destroy his entire team. So yeah, that's the idea with the offensive core, or at least the breaker sweeper core, I guess is the better way to put it. Now this next core is my speed core. Now if you look at his speed tiers at the very beginning, what I talked about, he has a lot of really high speed tiers. The Hawlucha's kind of annoying as a fast Pokemon. The Mega Alakazam's another example. Lycanroc in the sand is pretty annoying as a fast Pokemon, so I want to have a way to guaranteed outspeed stuff like that. Now, Hawlucha with an Unburden boost, I cannot outspeed that. Nothing on my team can outspeed a Hawlucha Unburden boosted. That's fine, but I can outspeed Lycanroc in the sand, and I can outspeed Mega Alakazam. Now I can do that by bringing a Trace Choice Scarf Gardevoir, so this will be able to outspeed the Lycanroc in the sand because I'll be able to trace the Sand Rush ability and immediately outspeed him with my Choice Scarf, and I can fire off a Focus Blast. If I really need to take it out on that particular turn, that can be something I can do. If I have the Lycanroc whittled a little bit further, maybe I can just go for a Moonblast. The one thing I do need to keep in mind on that obviously is if the sand is currently active, the Lycanroc would have a boost to its special defense, so I need to keep that in mind for my damage calcs moving forward. But overall, just a really good check to the Lycanroc, as well as just being another way to threaten and outspeed a non-unburdened boosted Hawlucha, as well as doing a lot of damage to a Mega Alakazam if I need to. Plus, this little Tech and Healing Wish is really nice for the Celesteela if that has to take some damage earlier in the game, or potentially to heal back up Staraptor if I need it to be the win condition, depending on what he brings. So this is one of my Choice Scarfers. My other Choice Scarfer is the Staraptor, which I did change the nickname of. Keep that in mind here. I changed it to Frieslander because, as Freeze pointed out in my draft analysis, I did not really nickname my Staraptor after any person. I had just named it RIP Toronto, but Freeze is the Rotterdam Staraptors, and he made my pretty graphics that you're seeing here. So first of all, make sure to go check him out. Second of all, this is going to be named after Freeze now. So Choice Scarf Staraptor, pretty cool mon. Like I said, I could run an Adamant Nature instead of a Jolly Nature because of how his speed tiers work, so that's pretty awesome. U-Turn for momentum. Brave Bird because it's super spammable against his team. He only has the Rotom Heat to resist. And Tyranitar, he has 3 resists. He's Lycanroc, he is Rotom Heat, and he has Tyranitar. None of those appreciate Brave Bird for one. Tyranitar really doesn't care as much, but I still have U-Turn and Close Combat if I need it. And then I played with the option of Double Edge to hit the Rotom Heat a little bit harder, but I opted for Defog because I simply wasn't able to fit Defog on the Rotom that you'll see here in just a second. So Defog is just there because he does have the Sticky Web option in his Araquanid, and if he does bring Sticky Web, that could be kind of annoying for this pretty aggressive hyper-offensive build that I'm going for here in this matchup. Now I am just running a pretty straightforward 252 spread this week because this still outspeeds a Scarf Rotom Heat even max speed. Now, the one thing I did mention on Gardevoir, I added some bulk on this just so that I could take a +2 quick attack from the Diggersby if needed. So next up is the Seismitoad. So this is going into my defensive pivots part of my team. So I pretty much just need this for Stealth Rock, as it's the only rocker on my draft right now. That's not going to last. I'm going to have another rocker going into week 2, which you will see a little bit later on. But this is my rocker for this week. Just a general defensive pivot. It's a good way to switch into his Tyranitar if I need to. It's my best defensive check to the Lycanroc, just because it's my, I think my only like sturdy rock resist on this team. Zygarde obviously resists rock, but this is also a pretty good rock resist, very good rock resist. Now, the special defense investment does allow me to take hits from Rotom Heat. I kind of expect to see HP Grass on Rotom Heat this week. On his set, I think he's going to be like Volt Switch, Status Move, HP Grass, and Overheat. I think that's the most likely set. He might be a 50% berry. He might have a recovery move somehow. I'm not really sure. He might just have leftovers, but even so, I kind of expect to see Hidden Power Grass, so I want to make sure I can take those hits, and I do not at all expect him to be offensively invested. He has to be fat Rotom Heat to be able to deal with my onslaught of offense, essentially. So that's the idea behind this special defense investment, and then the 20 EVs and speed is just to maybe allow me to outspeed a aggressively speed creeping Alolan Exeggutor. I don't think he's going to do that, but his 20 EVs is not really going to break the bank to do that, and I just want to make sure I can fire off an Ice Punch right away if that ends up being the case, as this specific team is a little bit weak to Alolan Exeggutor under Trick Room, just because I'm trying to command the highest speed tiers with Choice Scarfs, so I want to make sure I have ways to severely weaken it if that's what he decides to do, maybe put it in range of Zygarde's extreme speed. So otherwise, Scald, just a good spammable move against his team. Toxic, again, because he doesn't have good Toxic resists, and yeah, Rocks for obvious reasons. So now last is the Rotom Ghost, so I'm actually bringing my Tier 5 this time in the GBA. I've drafted Gourgeist in the D-League, and I didn't bring it once, so I wanted to make sure I brought my Tier 5, and I drafted my Tier 5 very early, as you saw, just because I knew this was going to be a Tier 5 that I was willing to bring from week to week. So we're bringing Vandalex the Rotom this week. This is going to be my dedicated response to Hawlucha, as well as just being a dedicated nuisance to his team. It's a good pivot into Diggersby as well, as Diggersby can't fire off either of its stabs against Rotom Ghost. So I'll be able to switch in and burn or Hidden Power Ice the Diggersby if I need to. The special attack investment allows me to guaranteed knock out the most likely Hawlucha spread against my team, so that's pretty convenient as well. Culpa Berry just in case he's a Throat Chop Hawlucha. So that is the team for this week. I am very confident in this team, I'm going to be honest. I am very confident in this team. I think it can get the job done if I play well. I think the double Scarf could catch him off guard, and I really don't think he can stand up against the combination of Autotomy Celesteela and the Zygarde Dog, especially with the Adamant nature. Just changing that nature from Jolly to Adamant on Zygarde Dog makes a huge difference. Okay, base 100 attack is not that strong coming off of a Jolly nature, but when you change that to Adamant, it really makes a big difference for something like this that typically isn't that strong without a choice band. So yeah, that's the team. Hope you're looking forward to the battle coming up tomorrow. Don't know exactly what time it'll be coming up yet, but be on the lookout. Most likely it'll be somewhere around 4 o'clock EST, roughly. I don't know, we'll see. I probably shouldn't say exactly when, but hey, be on the lookout for that. So we are done here. Have a good one, guys. Later.